Okay, so you know how so many coaches, especially sales coaches, will tell you just remain unattached in the sales conversation. Just, remain neutral. And when you try to do that, it's just a little easier said than done. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. So, with that, hello, I'm Jana Niksa, the Authentic Sales Coach. I help coaches. I help coaches, consultants, and service based solopreneurs map out their sales process, create high ticket offers that sell, and learn how to make peace with sales in general by doing it authentically and with far more flow and ease. Now that we got that out, let's talk about this whole attachment piece. So, okay. Um, I'm going to give you some tools today to really actually help you make this idea a reality. Because, like so much of sales, it's like just be confident. And yet, that's not exactly easy to do now, is it? And so, would it be okay with you if I really broke down how to remain neutral and unattached during a sales conversation? So, first things first, what we want to focus on is you all, if you've been on my channel for a minute, you know that I like to focus on the two states of being and this idea of force in your ego down here on the bottom part of the Hawkins scale, and power and love and using your higher mind at the top. Okay. And so definitely check out my other videos where I really break this scale down. But first and foremost, if you're going to remain unattached during a sales conversation and really be that neutral advisor and make it about them and all of those pieces, the most important thing you can do is be in service mode. This is not about me. This is not about my ego. And what do I say? And how do I get them to do what I want them to do? And it is continuously re-educating yourself back into your higher mind, back into your heart, back into your expanded version of yourself, and standing in your power. Okay. And this is a practice. It's not a perfect, but the first thing you want to do is notice when you're in your fear, when you're in your control, when you're in that attachment, because those are all languages of the ego, and re-educate yourself back. Okay. So something I like to say is I'm pure source consciousness. And that helps me remember who who and what I really am, and that I am here to serve this other person in front of me. And sometimes I'll even put my hand on my heart. Okay. And so these are the kind of things that I would really invite you to do, whether you're on a sales call or not on a sales call, but just in life, to continuously re-educate yourself back to love, re-educate yourself back to your power, re-educate yourself back to your heart. Okay. And so what I would continuously do throughout the day is it's all about cultivating awareness. It's all about creating the space between what you're thinking and what you're doing and how you're feeling, and noticing when you're all up in this area, grief, shame, anxiety, worry, because that's all ego. Okay. And so when we talk about the authentic sales model, we talk about ego-less selling, selling with your heart. This is selling for the more consciously evolved. Okay. The old system, the old way of selling is very much force, ego, fear, scarcity, but that's not what we're doing here. Okay. So that would be the first step that I would really highly suggest that you start implementing, is cultivating awareness around what state of being am I in, and re-educating yourself back to your empowered state. Okay. And so the more you do this, the easier it gets. So from there, what I would say before you get on a sales call, I would invite you to do some deep breathing, intention setting. I like to set the intention of the highest good for all. And that just really releases a lot of that pressure, right? It's no longer about me. What do I need to say? And how does it like highest good for all? Because I believe that you can't lose the right client. And so the more intentional you are before the sales call of reminding yourself of these things, the better your energy is going to be. Okay. So before a sales call, taking those deep breaths, grounding yourself, visualizing those tree roots, going, shooting out through your feet and way down into the bottom, into the middle of the earth, right? Shooting that um, channel of light up so that you're held and supported from above and below. Feeling your feet resting on the floor, feeling your back against the chair, and just ground. And the more you get in the practice of doing this, it will just start to feel like you don't even have to remember to do it. It just happens. But it's all about how we show up to the call. Okay. And then don't worry, I'm going to tell you in a minute, like how to manage the call too. But the cleaner, the more pure your intention, the more grounded and centered you are, and the more you're in your higher mind and in the expanded, I can't talk today, you guys, powerful version of you, the better off you're going to be. So that's what I would do before the call. One more practice I do as I'm entering into my office before an important call or presentation or even going on stage is I check my ego at the door. Like I quite literally visualize leaving it outside. And we are all energetic creatures at the end of the day. And even though these things may feel really simple and it's not possible that that could work, it actually does. Doing visualization and cord cutting and energetically setting the intention that your ego stays outside is absolutely effective. It's actually surprising how simple some of these things are, but yet how powerful they are. But if you're on your spiritual journey at all, which I suspect you are if you're listening to this, if you're on my podcast slash YouTube channel, then you've already seen some of this in your own spiritual journey, that it is simple. It's not always easy. We don't always remember to do it, but it is these simple things that go a long way. So then let's talk about what happens during the call. If I'm going to remain neutral and unattached, I'm going to manage my ego. I've checked it at the door, but let's be real, that ego can be very persistent little booger, right? So the other thing I do is if I notice that it's starting to come in, and what is it going to sound like, you guys? It's going to sound like this isn't going well, or I don't think you said that right, or they don't like you, or burr, 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 whatever like inner critic narrative you have in your head. When you start hearing some of that, and then of course that's going to create anxiety, right? Then it's going to create pressure. Then it's going to create discomfort. And then the person on the other receiving end is going to feel it. So instead, what we do is we notice when that ego is trying to enter back into the conversation going on in our mind. And I quite literally will just take, I don't do this physically, but inside my mind, I just visualize myself taking like a book and my ego's in it, and I just set it on the shelf. Or in my mind, if I'm feeling a little bit more feisty, I will just flick it. I'll just flick my ego away. But the bottom line is I'm very stern in the sense that my ego does not at all, hear me when I say this, your ego does not need to be involved in your sales conversation. It will only hurt you. It will not help you. So when you notice that it comes in, I want you to have a plan to dismantle it right there in the moment, because the longer it hangs out, the more pressure it's going to put on you. Okay. Something else to do on the sales call is if you're asking open ended questions and you're actively listening to their answers and not waiting to talk, that requires full presence. And here's the best part: when you're fully present, your ego doesn't exist. The only place that has power is scaring you about the future and maybe not having enough at some future moment, or the past and telling you how you didn't do something right or you're not good enough or whatever the stories are. But it only has power over you by projecting where you are in this now moment into the future or into the past. So if you're truly doing your job as the person who is providing this service on this call, then you're being fully present and you're listening to them actively. And when you're focused in that way, there's no room for your fear. There's no room for attachment, because by definition, attachment is ego. By definition, control is ego. By definition, lack consciousness is ego. These are all currency the ego uses to take us out of the present moment, to get us into fear. Fear of, not saying the right thing, fear of I'm not going to have enough money, when none of that belongs in the sales conversation. Because at the end of the day, it is not about you. It is about the person in front of you doing and making the right decision for them, and you doing your best to just help guide them through that process with neutrality and with really anti-pressure, like a leaning out type energy. Because the more we lean in and want the thing, the more they're going to sense that and lean out. And the more we lean out with the energy, I'm good either way, buy or don't buy, the more they lean in. Because that just all on its own is going to feel so energetically different to any other sales call they've had. Even those guys that are saying, yeah, we do it authentically and pressure-free sales, you get on calls with them and that is not the case. Their ego ends up taking over. So learn to manage your ego. And this is one of those things that I teach and I work on with my clients. So, it is something that can definitely be learned, and it builds so much confidence in your ability to show up and just really be the energetic holding of space that that person needs in order to make an important decision. Okay. So beyond that, we've talked about all the grounding and the intention setting before the call, checking your ego at the door. We've talked about how to manage your ego during the call. We've talked about focused presence and active listening. And last but not least, which is really powerful, is if you do start to get unhinged, like it just starts to take over the fear and the pressure, is it's really important to, again, you're not supposed to be doing most of the talking anyway. You only want to be talking like 25% of the time or less. Okay. So if you start to feel some of the pressure and that stuff rise, ask a really solid, open-ended question and breathe, and just bring yourself back to your breath. Re-ground yourself, re-center yourself, remember, and re-educate yourself back into your heart space. And you can be doing all of that in an instant. But remaining unattached is not something you can logically do. This is an energetic thing. And there's all sorts of different practices and ways that you can strengthen this muscle so that you don't let your ego get involved in your sales conversation. So let me know in the comments if this is resonating with you and you feel like these are some of your practices that you could really utilize in your sales conversations, and what do you feel will be the most beneficial. I'd love to hear it. And also, just want to give you a heads up. We've got some big events coming up within the next few weeks. So check out the links below for all the details. It will be our last masterclass of the year. So I hope to see you there. And thank you again, as always, for watching, and we'll see you next week.